Wonderful. And welcome to Wellness Wednesday. We've got May the 12th, and I'm really excited. I mean, I love talking to you guys. I love sharing. I love inspiring. That's just what I do. I love inspiring around health and well-being. And I'm really excited about this topic. I love talking about all the topics I talk to you guys about. I wouldn't talk to you about them if I didn't. Hey, Hall. Hey, Beck. I've got some haze coming in. But this one underpins everything in our health, and this is why this matters. So this is why we're talking to this one. Inflammation in our life, inflammation, and also a little bit around omega-3s. So if you haven't seen it, I'll post it in the comments on the hub, and I did post it on my stories on Facebook and Instagram, a picture of me when I was 22 years old, and I had eczema down my arm. I was drinking like this sugary alcoholic lolly drink. It was my 22nd birthday, and I was about 90 kilograms. I was depressed. I was anxious. I had toxic relationships, very toxic relationships. I didn't know what self-care was. I didn't do it either. Didn't know what meditation was. What else? I binge drank. I ate so much processed food. So, a lot of the frozen food you can get, it's full of a lot of those inflammatory oils, which I'll talk more on as we go through tonight. And this is just a snippet, PS. So for those of you who want to dive deeper into inflammation because you feel it could potentially be happening, well, here's a trick for you. Potentially, most likely is, if there's disease happening in the body, inflammation is the underlying issue here. So if you want to dive deeper into inflammation and the ways that you can support your body further, because as I always say, I can only cover so much in 15 minutes, please join me Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, an hour Zoom. You'll be able to see the link tree bio on my Facebook, and also in my Instagram will take you there. If you don't have access to the link, if you can't find it, please comment link and I'll send it through to you for you to register for that webinar on Zoom. It's going to be nice and interactive. Send you away with some really great tips and tricks and more information on inflammation. So say that 10 times really fast. I always throw in big words together. Okay, so if you feel called, please join me. I'd love to serve you even further with this. Now, I wanted to share that story about what things looked like for me a couple of years, 13 years ago now. Oh my God, almost 13 years ago. Showing my age, because I want to share with you the impact that inflammation has on our body, physically, mentally, emotionally, in every single way possible, and how things that we're doing in our life that we may think are maybe not that concerning can actually compound and build up over time. It's like some people say to me, I only do it like a little bit, but sometimes a little bit can become more than just the little bits of moderation that we need. Like the sometimes food can become more of the regular foods when they're meant to be staying as sometimes foods, like those processed junk foods and things like that. So I share this with you guys because I want you to see that, one, I've lived it, I've been there. I was like a ball of inflammation, just didn't know it. And two, that if I can make these changes, then you absolutely can do this as well. And number three, that this is vital for your health. This is like the ultimate, like this, working on this is going to help support your body and your mind in ways that you'll never, ever realize. And it will, as I said, like in my stats, like chronic inflammation is like the biggest health burden. All of our chronic diseases stem from this inflammation. And there's actually a bonus that I want to chat to you tonight about as well. So in regards to mold, because I've just had a really interesting article, someone, actually hubby, sent to me. So I'm going to share that as well. Now, all this stuff that I was experiencing was because of my diet and my lifestyle. I was super stressed. I had no stress management techniques. I lived a diet of saturated fats, lots of animal products, processed foods. I ended up having my gallbladder out because I was having too much of the less favorable fats. I never say good and bad, less favorable. those saturated and those processed fats from junk foods. I didn't have any omega-3s in my diet. So I wasn't having any nuts and seeds or fish, any of that, or any supplements. I know food first, but with omega-3s, which I'm going to talk about tonight, there's some really great supplements that can help to bring the omega-3s up. Because sometimes it's not about decreasing the omega-6s, it's sometimes even just about adding more of the good stuff in, so the other stuff kind of balances out. And I'll talk more about the ratios we need in our diet in a second. I was using a lot of painkillers, hangovers 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on how much I drank. So the painkillers to ease the hangovers and things like that, or just get back into drinking again. And now I'm someone that rarely drinks. I think I've still got a headache from the couple of glasses of wine I had Saturday night. No, not really. My body actually processes it really well, because the more inflammation, the more toxic buildup in our body, the harder it actually can be for our body to do what it naturally does. So the more we support it, the easier it's going to process and do what it's designed to do. So I had a huge intake of refined carbohydrates. Like, I would go into like the bulk food store. I was living in Albury, going to uni, and I'd go and get the frozen fish and frozen pizzas and frozen veggies, and that would pretty much make up my week's meals. Sometimes I'd throw in there maybe some packet mix of curried sausages, so it looks very different to what it does now, but lots of refined carbs, lots of those vegetable oils that help to keep the shelf life, even in frozen foods, and the texture and things like that. No gut support. Didn't even know what gut health was, hey? Anyone relate to that? Chemicals, exposure to chemicals in my personal care products, or just putting on my skin. The cheaper, the better. I was the biggest tight ass, but it came at an expense to my health. So please invest in your health, time, money, whatever it takes, because you either pay for health now, invest in health now, or pay for illness later. I know which one I'd prefer. One more is so much more enjoyable. And so chemicals in my food. Now, I know sometimes it's not possible to eat organic all of the time. So check out the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen. If you're not familiar with that, Google it. It'll come up. I think I've even got it on my website. I think I've got a handout. Let me know if you want the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen handout. Write Clean 15 Dirty Dozen in the comments and I'll get it through to you guys. So yeah, I surprise myself some days. Okay. Now, to so many of this picture is actually not that unfamiliar. And to so many of us, it can actually be what we see as the norm. So the stress, the alcohol consumption, the refined carbohydrates, not looking after our gut health, no self-care, looking at the chemicals in our environment. Righto, girls, I'll get that through to you all. I might even post it in the hub, actually. Let's do that. Remind me. No, I'll put a reminder in here. Okay, so as I said, this is not a little topic that we can just talk about in 15 minutes. So remember, I've got the Zoom happening on Sunday. If you need the link for that, type link in the comments. I'll get that through to you. You'll find it on my platforms. If you can't, just let me please know. But for right now, I want to talk about omega-3s versus omega-6s. There is a handout that should have gone into the hub, Green Tarrawanna's Health Hub on Facebook. So it is, Beck, the version of the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen typically comes out of the States. I'll see if there is an Aussie one, but usually it's from the States. They do update it every year though, and usually it's quite similar, but yeah, it would be great to have that. So if anyone does know if there's an Aussie one, all I know of is the US one. Okay, so what's happening is that all of these things are building up this inflammation in our bodies, which then when we've got inflammation, that can lead to physical, emotional stress and diseases, things like that. Now, there's so many different things we can do to decrease the inflammation in our body, like stress management techniques, looking at things like meditation and breath work. There's obviously the food side of things, but one really simple way I want to talk to you about tonight is through our omega-3 and our omega-6 ratio. Now, you might not have heard of this before. So there's different kinds of fats that we get in our diets, and there's the class of the essential fatty acids, which is what omega-3 and omega-6 are. They're essential, meaning our body cannot make them, so we need to get them from our diet. Things like our B vitamins as well. So we cannot actually make these. So we get them from things like nuts and seeds and fish and algae. So the fish actually get their omega-3s from eating algae. So at the moment, I'm actually, or I always do, I always take some flaxseed oil in my smoothies. It's really great. It's got omega-3s and omega-6s, and I'll tell you more about the ratio in a second. But I also take a algae-based, instead of fish oil, I take an algae-based omega-3 supplement. And I did put a picture up somewhere about that, but I will get that through to you guys as well if you're concerned. If you want to look into the omega-3 supplements. But basically we need this ratio, and we need a ratio of 4 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. This is all in my blog as well. If you're part of my newsletter, you would have got that. If you're not, make sure you subscribe so you get all the blogs, the links to the blogs. So think of omega-3s as like anti-inflammatory. It's really good for cardiovascular. It's proven to decrease risk of heart disease, things like that. It's really good for heart, cardiovascular, anything like any membranes we have. So it's really good for hair, skin, nails, things like that. So, and Ness, I saw your comment about asking about supplements as well. So I'll reply to that in a moment. So many comments jumping up. I'm just replying as I'm going through. So your omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, really good for those. Any fats are really good for hormones and our any membranes in our body. So a lot of cells and things like that, nervous system. However, it's about the types. And so the omega-6s, they're a bit more, they can be proven to decrease that bad cholesterol. They can also be helpful in risk factors for heart disease, things like that, but they are more pro-inflammation. So omega-3s are more anti-inflammatory, whereas omega-6s are more pro-inflammatory, but we still need inflammation in our body. Like when we have an illness or we get an injury or an infection or wounds and things like that, inflammation is the body actually healing itself. But what's happening is, because of all the stuff above that was my life 13 years ago, our inflammation has become chronic, and that's when it becomes a problem. So inflammation, when we need it, is a good thing. So omega-6s help to support that. However, what's happening is we're meant to have 4 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. So it's actually more omega-6s. I was like, when I was reading this, when I learned about this years ago, I was like, that's confusing, because omega-3s are meant to be like but anyway, this is how it is. And so the modern day diet, because of those processed foods, because of meats like animal products with more of the omega-6s and saturated fats, because of a lot of the processed oils. I shared on my story yesterday, I don't know if it's still up there, about the inflammatory oils. Like, even though they may have omega-6s, they're too inflammatory, like your sunflower seed oils and things like that. So because of all of the oils that are in processed foods, like baking foods, like chips, rice crackers, rice cakes are in everything pretty much. They're even in dates, like the vegetable oils are even in dates to give them that shelf life. I've got a blog on this too that I've linked in this week's blog. Basically, I'm blabbing. We're getting way too much of the processed foods, the processed oils, the omega-6s from our meats and things like that. So we need to balance it out. We need to bring the omega-3s up through our diet. And there's a whole list on that PDF of foods that are great for your omega-3 intake, as well as those algae supplements. And it's also got the list of foods that are good for omega-6. But typically we don't need to focus on this. Typically it's about focusing on increasing our omega-3 intake. High quality fish, you get fatty fish like mackerel and salmon and things like that, and algae, and also your nuts and seeds. So there's a whole list on that PDF regarding the omega-3s to the omega-6s. So I hope that's making sense. Basically, we need to look at getting those omega-3s into our diet. So if you're not having fish in your diet regularly, more than a few times a week, if you're not having, healthy nuts and seeds, if you're having too much of the other processed animal-based foods, then we need to look at increasing your omega-3s and maybe getting some flaxseed oil and or algae supplements. Omega-3 supplements would be really helpful for you. So there you go. So as I said, there's all of this information is on my blog. So make sure you're part of my newsletter. So you'll get these blogs and you'll get the recipes every week. I send them out like 10 minutes before I'm going live to remind you guys that I'm jumping on live. And so you can just click on it and you've got the access to all the information that I've talked about tonight. So make sure that you're a part of that. Now, our body's struggling to fight that inflammation. That's why we need to increase omega-3s. And omega-3s are also, alongside probiotics, fantastic for things like eczema. So I used to suffer, as you saw, from eczema and things like that. That was another way my body was showing me that it's in a state of inflammation and that I needed to work on my gut health and also bring in some more healthy fats like my omega-3s. Your skin will love it, like absolutely love it too. Okay. So how much do we need? I've got you covered on that too. It's in the handout. I talk all about that. I'm not going to go in that on the live because it's just numbers. So go have a look at the handout and see what you exactly need per day. Now there's other kinds. So you've got omega-3s and omega-6s. Now in the omega-3 camp, you might have heard of give me a like or a love if you've heard of like your DHA or your EPA or your DPA. DHA, EPA, DHA, DPA, all of these acronyms. You might have heard of them as that we get them from fish and algae and things like that. So they're part of our omega-3 intake that's really important for our brain function, cognition, skin, hair, nails, membranes, everything that I've talked about today. So I have all the recommendations for what's required with that, but this algae omega-3 supplement that I take has those included as well. So it's why really important to get the range of them. And this all comes from the nutritional reference values from Australia. So it's all there, all on their website as well, which is linked in the blog. Okay, I think that's it. Guys, have you got any questions? Before I finish, yell out if you've got any questions. I'm just going to check to see what's happening over on Facebook. Otherwise, make sure you register. I'll send that link through to people who would like to join me for the omega-3s, the fighting inflammation. So we're really going to get in and we're going to talk a bit more in depth about, okay, the causes of inflammation. We're also going to talk about the strategies that are vital to being able to decrease your inflammation. And you're going to walk away with an actual action plan for you that you can implement specific to your life, because what I've listed above, yeah, it may have resonated, but there may be other things that are happening in your life that we need to take a look at. And I reminded my brain to tell you about mold. So those of you who may have heard my story, we actually moved house because of mold issues. We lived in this really, really, really old house. And there was mold in the bathroom, but I dare say there would have been mold all through the house. And this is a big point that I want to focus on with you guys, is that sometimes you can't even see the mold. And sometimes in really old houses, they'll paint over the mold, which is really, really bad because then you can't get rid of it. And it's actually still going, the spores still can infect you. And it's actually, there was a research article done by the ABC. If you just look up ABC mold and inflammation, it'll pop up about this lady who lived in Darwin who was like chronically unwell. She was so tired. And it's because this house in Darwin, she had like under her bed, the whole underneath the carpet, it was all mold, like the size of her bed. And so she was sleeping on top of this mold. She didn't even know it. And she was wondering why she was so sick. And she actually ended up with this chronic inflammation. There's actually disease that stems from mold as well, because of these biotoxins impact on our bodies. So please, 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 make sure you are mindful of mold, because it has a huge impact, and it's a number one thing that can throw out your thyroid as well. Mold, huge hormone changes, and huge emotional like grief, sadness, things like that are the three main things that will throw out your thyroid. I had all three last year, so I had the triple whammy, and it ended up in a huge state of inflammation and thyroid issues and a lot of healing around that. So there you go. Look at the mold. Make sure you get your house checked over. Holly, can you do a gut protocol and inflammation reduction at the same time? Hand in hand. So when you focus on supporting your gut health, you'll change, because we do have bacteria in our gut that can cause inflammation, all this kind of stuff. So it's just like it's the perfect marriage. When you look at decreasing inflammation in your body, it's just like they go so well together. So looking at supporting your gut health alongside cutting all these things out, supporting your gut health is going to help that inflammation, and getting rid of all those inflammatory things is also going to help your gut health. So it works both ways and it works beautifully. So absolutely, they go hand in hand with supporting each other. I think that's it for tonight. I'll see you guys on Sunday if you're joining me. I hope you are, because I'd love to see you there and dive deeper into this, because we've already been going for 20 minutes. And as you can see, it's such a big topic that I can't fit all this information in. So I want to just add more value to you guys and share this with you on Sunday. So I'll see you there. I'll send those links and pictures and everything through to everyone, and have a beautiful end of your week. And thanks for joining me. Bye.